Why London proposed the world's first international. No, that isn't a mistake. I intended to write London instead of England. If anything, this is the fact that cannot dare be mentioned by proponents of the argument that England invented world football. I have previously spoken about the passing and running Scotch professor combination game of the world's first international. I referred to the way the Scots played in that match and how it influenced the entire world. But to make sense of this extraordinary duel, we also have to look at it from the point of view of the politics of English football. England calls its national association the Football Association. It is a piece of hubristic effrontery which has always annoyed the members of the Scottish Football Association. Whence cometh this inaccurate moniker? The truth lies in the imperial mindset of England. Apparently England was first at everything, and therefore did not need to append its name to institutions such as the Royal Mail. That great source of information, but also that great source of lies and deflection, is Wikipedia. On dry matters it is excellent. The fact that it allows input from anyone who is able to adhere to the structure on its pages makes it a boon. Unfortunately, it also means that the large groups of people with spare time can edit pages with which they disagree. I refer you to Israel and Palestine. The idea that Scotland invented world football is a small voice trying to make itself heard over its much larger neighbour, which just knows that it is the founder of football. Let us look at the page on the history of the self-styled Football Association of England. It correctly states that an association was founded at the Freemasons' Tavern in London on the 26th of October 1863. But curiously omits to mention that it was really a London association playing to what was known at the time as the London Rules. Why would other English football clubs have called it the London Rules? Because the rest of England had perfectly serviceable rules of their own. The oldest continuously functioning club in the world, the Sheffield FC, had joined the London Association, but they still retained their own set of rules. Nottingham clubs had their own rules and regular games. As one of the players of the time recalled, charging and dribbling were the chief features of the game, and often very rough play was indulged in. Doesn't sound like the Scottish game to me. What is often glossed over is the fact that the Football Association of England started out as a geographically London association, because it did not provide a function for the rest of England. Whilst great credit must go to Charles Alcock of the Wanderers FC for starting the association, which eventually became All English, it was not so at the beginning. The Scottish Football Association was the national association from the day it was founded on the 13th of March 1873. Queen's Park had been founded in 1867. They quickly became the dominant force in Scotland, adopting a strong missionary role which has remained with them to the present day. If you needed to know how to play the game, they would turn up and show you, even stopping a match to discuss the finer points of the combination game. A corollary of this was that you played the Queen's Park way, or not at all. I doubt that this was too much of an imposition for any Scot. Queen's Park had not come up with some novel way of playing the game. They were only perfecting a sport which had been practised in the towns and villages of Scotland for half a millennium. One day we will discover a copy of the Blairgowrie rules of the 18th century, or the set-up of the John Hope FC of Edinburgh in 1824, or the rules of the game that David Wedderburn watched at Aberdeen Grammar more than 400 years ago. Charles Alcock of the London-based association was not stupid. He knew that just stating that they had a national set of rules did not make it so. There were enough areas of England who played their own game to make his position as secretary of the association somewhat delicate. He was nothing if not flexible. The Sheffield Club had suggested a game under their rules to the Wanderers of London. who had ignored it. Cambridge University had had their own rules since 1863 and were rebuffed by London when they suggested a match too. Oxford University founded an association football club in November 1871. They adopted the London FA rules, then promptly removed Rule 6. This meant that any player in front of the ball was offside, which therefore made a forward pass impossible. Now that you know these facts, it is easy to see why Alcock played a metaphorical long game. He suggested a Challenge Cup competition as a way of making provincial English clubs play to his rules. He wrote to Glasgow and Edinburgh newspapers, suggesting that there be an international match between Scotland and England. Why would the bigger country allow the game to be held in Scotland? Because the London-based association did not have the power to tell the rest of England where the game was going to be held. Much easier to allow the Scots to host it, because there were more than enough other problems with which Mr. Alcock had to contend. Alcock couldn't bring a London Association team north of the border. He had to make it look like a national squad so that he could advance his association's planned-for dominance by stealth. This led to the often ignored but utterly bizarre situation of an England team trotting out onto the Glasgow pitch full of players who adhered to London rules, Sheffield rules, Nottingham rules or Cambridge rules. The team gelled so well, Charles Clegg, the token Sheffield man, said he didn't want to play with England anymore because the southern players had ignored him. Now tell me again how England invented the game Scotland perfected.